Welcome back. I'm Paul, and today we have an empty Lotto barrel, and we have basically all of our Mookite ready to move on to the next stage. I've been slowly rolling it through our 12-pound barrel that we roll all the time, and I've got all of it except for just a couple of really stubborn pieces that have some flaws that I should cut or break, but I've just been rolling them for a while, ready to go to medium in the Lotto tumbler. So it's all red and white and yellow, and it's got some different color patterns in there, and it looks pretty nice. So I think it should turn out pretty good. So we're going to get this started, and we're going to roll this through all the stages in the Lotto tumbler and see how it turns out when it's all polished up. So I've got water in the barrel already, and we're going to get our rocks loaded in there. Pretty nice colors to it for all those Iowa State fans. And they were all wet already, so you can see the color. So we've got all of our rocks in there, and now we'll throw in a little bit of the ceramic media. Got a little suds in them left over from the last batch, but that won't hurt anything. We're going to put, well, we don't put borax in on this stage, but it'll drain out. So with the Lotto, I load everything up wet, and then you dump out the water because you want all the rocks in there to be wet with no standing water. I might have to add some more ceramic once we get it rolling, but we'll see how it looks. And we're ready to go. We will get it set up on the tumbler and get the grit in. When I normally do my 180-220 grit, the medium grit, I do 2 tablespoons and I'll let it go for 2 days. And it seems like that's the one stage that I have a hard time keeping everything rolling because there's so much grit and it sands essentially more rock dust off the rocks that builds up in the barrel and it doesn't want to roll. So on this tumble, I'm going to do 1 tablespoon of the 180-220, and then I'll run it for a day, and then rinse it, and start over and do it again with 1 tablespoon for 1 day, and I'm going to try that on this batch to see how that turns out. See if I can keep them rolling better. Medium grit looks like. A little bit finer than your coarse stuff, but it's not quite dust like your finer 500s and 1000s look. We'll let it roll for a day, checking the water a few times a day to make sure that it stays wet enough to roll, and we'll be back tomorrow and we'll do another stage of this grit. The Mookite ran for 24 hours in the 180 or the 120-220 medium grit, and we just cleaned it all up and rinsed it off, put it back in there, and now we're going to do another 1-day run on the medium grit and see if that. I don't have a problem getting it to roll 1 day, but everything longer than a day, it seems like I struggle keeping it rolling. So it rolled well for the 1 day. Now we'll do another 1-day roll on it, and we'll get moving on to the next stage after that. All right, we'll go for one day and we'll be back tomorrow and we'll get it moving in the next stage. All right, the Mookites ran its second one-day cycle in the medium grit silicon carbide. And I always add a little more water to the barrel to slow the rolling action down, and some Dawn dish soap before, about a half an hour before I pull it off, so it helps with cleaning the slurry off the rocks. We'll clean that up better in a minute. We'll take a look at them a little bit. All right, that's what everything's looking like. Lots of bright colors in this stuff. I like it. And everything's obviously wet, and in the medium stage, shape didn't change, and it basically just sanded the scratches a little bit finer, getting us closer to polish. So I'll go through and clean these up good and clean the barrel up good, and we'll get them loaded back up, and we'll head over to the Lotto and get them going on 500 grit aluminum oxide. All right, everything's washed up good, loaded back in the barrel. It's all wet, and we're getting ready to go to the 500 grit aluminum silicon carbide, 500 grit silicon carbide stage, and it will go for 2 days. It will be a half a teaspoon of the 500 grit and a tablespoon of borax. One thing I don't normally talk about is if you've been around a Lotto or seen videos, obviously you've seen the red cap on the Lotto tumbler, and one thing you've probably seen a lot of people do is do the rubber band. Hook it on the bottom of the knob on the bottom of the barrel and over the top, and then back over. And that helps hold your lid on. And I never used to do this because I never had an issue with the lid coming off. But as of recently, I think when bigger, odder shaped rocks have more of a tendency as they roll to get up on top and kind of pop the lid off, and I've had a couple times where it's dried out on me. So if you haven't seen that before, it's a good little tip, and I'm sure if you've seen anything on Lottos, you've already seen it, but I've started doing that now, and since I've done that, I've had no issues with the lid coming off. So that's a nice little tip if you've never seen that before. All right, they went for 2 days in the 500 grit silicon carbide, and now we're ready to move on to 1000 grit silicon carbide. So it'll be a half a teaspoon of the grit and 1 tablespoon of the borax, and we'll go for another 2 days. we'll be back in 2 days and we'll be on to the next stage. Well, I'm normally not very good at showing what the rocks look like after they've been tumbling for 2 days with all the slurry on them, but that's how they look when they've been tumbling. That's 2 days on 1,000 grit with a tablespoon of borax and a half a teaspoon of the grit. So they're running a little slow, but now we're gonna add, this is what I do when I clean them out. I guess we can do that. When I clean them out, I'll give them a little shot of dish soap, doesn't matter what kind. And then we'll fill the barrel up a little fuller with water. And it helps get the grit off all the rocks, the slurry. And we'll do that, and we'll let that run for about a half an hour, and then we'll be ready to rinse them. All right, after our rocks got done with the 1,000 grit, I rinsed them, and we put them back in the barrel with borax, and we did a burnish cycle for a few hours, and it cleans the rocks better and gets the barrel cleaned up a lot better, so we're ready to go to the polish stage. So I always do a burnish before I go to polish. And now I've cleaned them all off again and scrubbed all the grit out of any little crack or imperfection that's left in anything, and we're ready to move on to polish. So we'll do a tablespoon of borax and a half a teaspoon of the polish, and they'll go for 2 days and they'll be done. Our Mookite ran for 2 days in polish, and we rinsed them, put them back in the barrel, and we did a burnish with borax soap for a couple hours, and now they're all dry and ready to look at, and I'd say that it was a pretty good success. So the running 1 day on 1 tablespoon of the medium grit didn't affect the rocks at all, and they look really nice. So I think that that might be my new thing to keep it rolling better in medium. But they all took a really good shine, and everything looks really nice. We'll take a quick look at a few of them here. I gotta go over here to get it to zoom a little better. Or to focus, I mean. Yeah, I'm really happy with them. They all look pretty good. There's a few flaws like that when I could have had to cut the rock in half, basically, to get rid of that. So we just live with it. That one looks nice. We had this flat one. Might have some fingerprints on them, but other than that, they're really nice. Everything looked good. Another flaw that, like I say, I would have had to cut that or do something to get rid of some of those. So, and the rest of the rock was really nice, so we just left it. They shined up really well. We had a couple that, like this material, the white stuff feels like it's not as dense, and like where the yellow is, it shined up really nice. I guess the white on the back is okay there, but the front side, it's a little bit dull compared to the rest. The red and the yellow stuff and the stuff that's purple, it all polished up really nice, but some of the white was a little dull. We've got this one that my daughter thought looked like a duck, so that's going to be her new thing. New rock to her collection, I guess. And they're all about the same, your reds and your yellows. And a little bit of white in there. Look at a couple of our favorites here, and then that'll be it for this run. that one needs a little bit more clean out. Had a big hole in it. Another one of those things where I could have cut that whole part of that rock off, but we dealt with it. Yeah, so as a whole, I'd say that the whole batch was pretty well a success. And we're moving on to our next batch in the Lotto Tumbler. Now we've got an empty barrel. So we'll have a lot more stuff coming up, and we've got some new things coming to the shop. And we'll be putting videos out on all of it. So if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like, and consider subscribing if you want to see some more content like this. And thanks for watching.